Some stories start with a whisper. A rumor passed from one person to another. But the story of the Mothman, it began with a scream in the dark. We're heading back to the mid-1960s. The place is Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a quiet town nestled along the banks of the Ohio River. Life here was predictable, steady, people knew their neighbors, they knew the sounds of the night. But in November 1966, something new arrived. The first encounter wasn't just a fleeting glimpse, it was a full-blown, terrifying confrontation. On November 12, 1966, 5 men were digging a grave in a cemetery near Clendenin, a town not far from Point Pleasant. Suddenly they saw something launch itself from the nearby trees. They described it as a large, man-like figure with enormous wings. It soared silently over their heads, a dark silhouette against the gray sky. They were grave diggers, men accustomed to the solemn quiet of a cemetery. But this was different. This was an intrusion, an unknown variable that left them shaken to their core. They didn't have a name for it yet, but they knew they had seen the impossible. Just 3 days later, the real story breaks. 2 young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry, and Steve and Mary Millette, were driving late at night. They were near an abandoned World War II munitions plant, known locally as the TNT Area. As they drove past the old power plant, their headlights caught something truly horrifying. It was a massive creature, standing nearly 7 feet tall. It had huge, feathered wings folded against its back, but the detail that burned into their minds, the detail everyone would remember, was its eyes. They were huge, red, and glowed with a hypnotic intensity. Paralyzed by fear, Roger Scarberry slammed his foot on the gas pedal. The car shot forward, tires squealing on the gravel road. They sped away from the abandoned plant, hoping they had left the creature behind. But when they looked in the rearview mirror, it was there. The winged thing was airborne, effortlessly keeping pace with their car, which was now pushing 100 miles per hour. It didn't flap its wings like a bird. It just glided, a silent, dark angel of terror chasing them down Route 62. The creature followed them all the way to the Point Pleasant city limits before veering off into the darkness, leaving 4 traumatized witnesses to tell a story that no one was prepared to believe. When the Scarberrys and Millettes stumbled into the Mason County Sheriff's Office, they were visibly terrified. Their story sounded like something from a science fiction movie, a winged man with glowing red eyes. It was a lot to swallow. Sheriff George Johnson listened, probably with a healthy dose of skepticism, but he could see the genuine fear in their eyes. These weren't troublemakers. They were just ordinary people who had seen something extraordinary. He took their report seriously, and later that night he drove out to the TNT area himself. He found nothing out of the ordinary, just the eerie silence of the abandoned factory. But the seed of the legend had been planted. The local newspaper, the Point Pleasant Register, picked up the story. A headline read, "Couples see man-sized bird, creature, something." That's when things really took off. Suddenly everyone had a story. It turned out the gravediggers weren't the only other witnesses. A local contractor named Newell Partridge claimed he had a bizarre experience just before the couple's sighting. His television went haywire and his dog, Bandit, started howling at the barn. When Partridge went to investigate, he saw 2 glowing red circles in the darkness. He described them as looking like bicycle reflectors. Petrified, he went back inside, and his dog was never seen again. The name Mothman was coined by a copy editor at an Ohio newspaper, likely inspired by the Batman TV series popular at the time. The name stuck. It was catchy, mysterious, and a little bit campy. But for the people of Point Pleasant, this was no joke. The sightings started pouring in. People reported seeing the creature perched on bridges, flying over cars, and peering into windows. The descriptions were eerily consistent. A tall, gray, headless humanoid figure with massive wings and those signature hypnotic red eyes. A wave of fear gripped the community. People started locking their doors and avoiding the TNT area after dark. At the heart of the Mothman mystery lies a very specific, very strange location. The West Virginia Ordnance Works, better known as the TNT Area. Built during World War II, this massive complex was used to manufacture and store munitions. After the war, it was largely abandoned, becoming a sprawling wasteland of decaying concrete bunkers, rusting metal, and overgrown wilderness. It was a place where nature was reclaiming what man had built. The area was also designated as a wildlife preserve, home to deer, owls, and other animals. It was the perfect backdrop for a monster story, isolated, eerie, and full of shadows. This maze of forgotten structures and dense woods became the creature's alleged stomping grounds. The majority of the initial sightings occurred in or around this sprawling 8,000-acre tract of land. The concrete domes or igloos used for storing explosives look like something from another world. They rise out of the earth like ancient tombs. On November 16th, the day after the Scarberries' encounter, another group of residents had their own run-in. Raymond Wamsley, his wife, and another couple were visiting friends near the TNT area. As they were leaving, they spotted the creature standing in the road. Wamsley's wife, Marcella Bennett, was carrying her infant daughter. She described being so mesmerized by the glowing eyes that she nearly dropped her baby. The creature slowly unfolded its wings and rose into the air, following their car for a short distance before disappearing. The encounter left them deeply disturbed, convinced they had seen something not of this world. These witnesses were credible. They were housewives, laborers, and business owners. They had no reason to lie. Their stories, told with genuine terror, added layers of credibility to the legend. Firefighters from Point Pleasant also reported seeing a large bird while responding to a call. The consistency of the reports was striking, always the towering height, the massive wingspan, and the glowing red eyes. The TNT area transformed from a local curiosity into a place of genuine dread. It was no longer just an abandoned factory. It was a hunting ground for a creature that defied all logic and reason. The mystery was deepening, and the fear was becoming a part of daily life. What started as a local spooky story soon exploded onto the national stage. The Associated Press and United Press International picked up the reports coming out of Point Pleasant. Suddenly, newspapers across the country were running articles about West Virginia's Mothman. The story had all the elements of a classic monster hunt. A mysterious creature, terrified eyewitnesses, and a baffled community. Reporters and curiosity seekers started flocking to Point Pleasant, hoping to catch a glimpse of the winged wonder. The town, once known for its quiet charm, was now the epicenter of a media frenzy. This national attention had a profound effect on the town. Some residents were embarrassed by the spectacle, worried it made them look like a bunch of superstitious country folk. Others leaned into it, enjoying the sudden fame. But for those who claimed to have seen the creature, the attention was often overwhelming. They were interviewed, questioned, and sometimes ridiculed. Yet they stuck to their stories, their conviction unwavering. The media attention validated their fear. If news outlets from New York and Chicago were covering it, then maybe it wasn't just their imagination. The Mothman was becoming a bona fide American phenomenon. The sightings continued throughout 1967, not just in Point Pleasant but in surrounding areas as well. The creature seemed to be expanding its territory. It was seen near Gallipolis, Ohio, just across the river, and in other parts of West Virginia. Each new report fueled the fire. Paranormal investigators and ufologists like the writer John Keel descended on the town. Keel in particular became a central figure in documenting the events. He interviewed hundreds of witnesses and began to connect the Mothman sightings to other strange phenomena in the area, including UFO sightings, strange lights in the sky, and reports of mysterious men in black. Keel's theory was that Mothman wasn't just a simple monster. He believed it was part of a much larger, more complex paranormal event. He suggested that the creature might be a supernatural entity or even an ultra-terrestrial, a being from another dimension. This idea, while far-fetched to some, resonated with many of the witnesses whose experiences went beyond just seeing a weird bird. They reported poltergeist activity in their homes, prophetic dreams, and strange, garbled phone calls. The Mothman legend was evolving from a cryptid sighting into a full-blown high-strangeness event, captivating a national audience hungry for a good mystery. The Mothman sightings, which had terrorized Point Pleasant for 13 months, came to an abrupt and tragic end. On December 15, 1967, during the evening rush hour, the Silver Bridge collapsed. This massive steel suspension bridge connected Point Pleasant, West Virginia, to Gallipolis, Ohio. Packed with holiday traffic, the bridge buckled and plunged into the icy waters of the Ohio River in less than a minute. The disaster claimed the lives of 46 people. It was a horrific tragedy that scarred the community for generations. And in the aftermath, the Mothman legend took on a dark and prophetic new meaning. In the wake of the collapse, people started looking back at the strange events of the past year. The Mothman sightings had stopped almost as suddenly as they had begun. There were virtually no credible reports of the creature after the bridge disaster. This led many, including investigator John Keel, to a chilling conclusion. They proposed that the Mothman wasn't a malevolent monster trying to harm people. Instead, they believed it was a harbinger of doom, a supernatural messenger sent to warn the people of Point Pleasant about the impending catastrophe. The creature's appearances weren't random. They were focused on the area that was about to experience immense tragedy. This theory retroactively changed the entire narrative. The glowing red eyes were no longer seen as purely menacing. Perhaps they were a sign of sorrow or a desperate attempt to communicate a warning that no one could understand. Some people even claimed to have seen the creature on or near the bridge in the days leading up to the collapse. The official investigation into the bridge collapse found a much more mundane cause. A tiny stress crack in a single eye bar, a critical component of the suspension chain, had failed due to a combination of metal fatigue and corrosion. It was a failure of engineering, not a supernatural event. But for many, this rational explanation wasn't enough. It couldn't account for the 13 months of terror, the strange lights, and the winged figure that haunted their town. For them, the Mothman will always be the silent watcher on the riverbank, a grim sentinel who appeared before the fall and vanished with the screams. When you're on an expedition, you have to consider all the possibilities, especially the logical ones. So, what if the Mothman wasn't a paranormal omen or a creature from another dimension? What if it was just a case of mistaken identity? This is the most common explanation offered by skeptics and wildlife biologists. The region around Point Pleasant is home to a variety of large birds. The prime suspect in this theory is the sandhill crane. These are enormous birds standing up to 4 feet tall with a wingspan that can exceed 7 feet. They also have distinctive reddish patches of skin around their eyes. Imagine you're driving down a dark country road. Your headlights flash across something unexpected. A sandhill crane, startled and standing on its hind legs, could certainly look like a tall, man-like figure. Its massive wings, when folded, might appear as part of its torso. When it takes flight, its size would be genuinely shocking to anyone not expecting it. The glowing red eyes could simply be the result of a biological phenomenon called eye shine, where light from headlights reflects off the tapetum lucidum in an animal's eyes. This is the same reason a cat's eyes seem to glow in the dark. A sandhill crane's red eye patches illuminated by a car's headlights could easily be perceived as glowing. Another candidate from the animal kingdom is the barred owl or the great horned owl. While not as large as a sandhill crane, these owls have huge forward-facing eyes and can have a wingspan of up to 5 feet. They are also completely silent flyers, which matches the eyewitness accounts of the creature gliding without a sound. An owl's face, with its flat, vaguely humanoid features and large eyes, could be terrifying when seen unexpectedly at night. A fleeting glimpse of a large owl taking flight from a barn or tree could easily be misinterpreted by a frightened witness as something far more monstrous. However, eyewitnesses have always pushed back against these explanations. They insist that what they saw was not a bird. They point to the creature's bipedal, man-like legs and its sheer speed, which they claim was far greater than any known bird. Roger Scarberry was adamant that the creature kept pace with his car at 100 miles per hour. No crane or owl can do that. Skeptics argue that fear and adrenaline can distort perception. Estimating speed and size in a panic-filled moment is notoriously unreliable. The animal misidentification theory is clean and simple, but for those who stood face-to-face with the Mothman, it just doesn't capture the sheer terror and strangeness of what they experienced. Mothman doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a grand American tradition of monster folklore. Every region seems to have its own local legend, its own thing that goes bump in the night. From the forests of the Pacific Northwest, home to Bigfoot, to the swamps of Louisiana, where the Honey Island swamp monster lurks, America is a land rich with cryptids. These creatures are a fundamental part of our cultural tapestry. They represent the wild, untamed corners of the map, and the dark, unexplored corners of our imagination. They are the modern-day dragons and griffins of our national folklore. What makes Mothman stand out in this pantheon of monsters is its unique set of characteristics. Unlike Bigfoot, which is generally depicted as a shy, reclusive ape-man, Mothman is an active and often terrifying presence. It doesn't just hide in the woods, it interacts with people. The Mothman legend also shares fascinating parallels with much older folklore from around the world. Winged humanoids with glowing eyes are not a new concept. Think of the angels and demons of religious texts or the gargoyles perched atop medieval cathedrals. In Irish folklore, the banshee is a female spirit whose wailing cry signals an imminent death in the family. In this context, Mothman can be seen as a modern American version of the banshee, a harbinger of doom adapted for the industrial age. It wasn't wailing near a castle, it was seen near a failing steel bridge and an abandoned munitions plant. Comparing these legends helps us understand what they say about us. Bigfoot represents our complex relationship with the wilderness and the idea of a missing link. The Jersey Devil reflects early colonists' fears of the strange new world they inhabited. Mothman, born in the atomic age, embodies our anxieties about technology, disaster, and forces beyond our control. Decades after the Silver Bridge collapsed and the sightings stopped, the Mothman legend is more popular than ever. So why does this story continue to fascinate us? What gives this winged creature from West Virginia such enduring power? The story has become a cornerstone of Point Pleasant's identity. The town has embraced its most famous resident. There's an annual Mothman festival that draws thousands of visitors from around the world. There's a 12-foot-tall, polished steel statue of the creature in the center of town, its red eyes staring out at passers-by. There's even a Mothman museum, dedicated to preserving the artifacts and stories from that fateful year. The legend has transformed from a source of fear into a source of tourism and civic pride. It's a remarkable evolution, showing how folklore can shape the destiny of a place. Mothman's legacy extends far beyond West Virginia. It has burrowed deep into pop culture, inspiring books, movies, documentaries, and video games. It has become a shorthand for the uncanny and the unexplained. The story resonates because it touches on deep, universal human fears: the fear of the dark, the fear of the unknown, and the fear that there are forces at work in the universe that we can't comprehend, let alone control. The idea that a disaster could be preceded by a supernatural warning is both terrifying and strangely comforting. It suggests that there's a pattern to the chaos even if we can't read it. Ultimately, the Mothman is more than just a monster. It's a piece of living folklore, a modern American myth. Whether it was a bird, a hoax, or a being from another dimension, it left an indelible mark on our collective psyche. The legend persists because it asks profound questions about perception, reality, and the thin veil that separates our world from somewhere else. It reminds us that even in our modern scientific age, there are still shadows on the edge of town where mystery takes flight. And as long as there are dark roads and unexplained sightings, we'll keep looking to the skies wondering what's really out there.